Hello, what's going on, y'all? Can y'all hear me well? What's up? What's up? Anybody in here? What we got? Nobody here yet? Well, anyway, I'll go anyway. So yeah, everyone. So we're gonna be responding to the breakdown and the ladies speaking about asexuality and black women entertaining asexual relationships. Um and Mr. Z has said it multiple times. You guys have heard me say it. What happens when you think you're better than black men, right? Or you feel that you are better than black men, right? You still live in an anti-black racist society, so it's not necessarily that non-black men are necessarily checking in that way. They're still racist as crap. They might have sex with you to knock you off of a bucket list, but for the most part, they are not interested, right? And that is much of that is because of racism, right? And then most women do not want to engage in same-sex relationships. Well, you find yourself in the same situation that many of these women are finding themselves in, right? Where they're supposedly opting to be asexual, right? So let me say that again. You think you're better than your black male counterparts. Non-black men are too racist and colorist and just not into black women, right? And other women, for the most part, are not into women, right? So I covered a piece of a documentary some months ago now. It had to be at least good six months now, at least, where radical feminists, both in Britain and in America, right, were speaking about this, what we see right now, this kind of phenomenon of men and women not interacting romantically and intimately. And as a matter of fact, one of the feminists said they used to play with the idea. And remember, we're talking about radical feminists from the 70s, early 80s. And by the way, I'm driving, so excuse my background, any road noise you might hear, or horns and honks and whatnot. So yeah, the radical feminists were speaking about, at one point, even trying to separate men and women from top of the equator and bottom of the equator, right? Or Western Hemisphere and Eastern Hemisphere. Like, so what some of these women are experiencing, it's already been spoken about decades ago, right? And this is what, like, this is the beauty of the Black Manosphere, is we bring in a lot of these talking points. We bring in, old video clips, old books, sayings, quotes from everyone, from black men, from black women, from white people that studied us, and show you, like, this is not new or surprising. So, black women experimenting, and more women experimenting with kind of this asexual thing, it's nothing new. And as the women on the breakdown were saying, or just being celibate for multiple years. And when we say multiple years, we're talking about 3, 4, 5 years. That's a thing. Remember, Mr. Z used to tell y'all that. I used to get some pushback because everybody think all these sisters are out here giving it up. Nah, I'm not saying it's a majority. I'm not even saying it's a significant minority, but it's more than you think of black women who hadn't had sex in 2, 3, 4, 5 years. You'll be surprised. And we're not talking about the most ugly or beastly looking ones either. Right? We also have to talk about, how many of these women are just socially awkward. See, we go in on the socially awkward brothers. We talk about your cousin, your guy cousin, that's a little weird, right? But we rarely talk about the socially awkward sisters, right? So another thing that the women on the breakdown brought up was that kind of outsourcing of certain traditional roles, right? Traditional things that you would have a man do or a woman would do, and how these things are being outsourced. Well, I mean, we live in a gig economy, right? So how do we think, like, the notion of having certain things outsourced in the gig economy all the way down to your shopping, right? That's why you get Uber Eats and I can't remember, Instacart and all these other things where you pay people to go get your food and bring it for you. Or you pay people to go to the grocery store for you and bring your food for you, bring your groceries for you. And if that's a thing on that level, then you will have to think that having your emotional needs met will be a thing in the upcoming future, right? I mean, we literally have cuddle cafes in Japan. Why do we think that's so far-fetched in America? We already have young men experimenting with some of these sex dolls and wanting to bring about kind of this sex doll revolution, right? So like that's a thing, right? I mean, did we forget we live what society we live in? Like this is capitalism. Like people hear me rail against capitalism and they don't really understand why oftentimes. Like it will eat itself. And before it gets there, it's gonna eat you first. All of you. Right? And you know, I covered this in a previous live also, the commodification of human beings, right? We've commodified ourselves and we commodified each other. So if you see human beings by some type of number, either their weight, their size, their height, their income, and all other human beings are just an amalgamation of different numbers, and you rank them according to whatever your supposed preference is, which by the way is still informed by overall society, right? It's not like you were born and raised in a vacuum. What that means is that, and like many of us have said over and over again in this space, I just feel the need to reiterate it. It's gonna come down to the top 20% of men, and then it's gonna come down to the top 20% of those men, and then it's gonna come down to the top 20% of those men, and women are literally going to price themselves out. When I hear this asexual revolution, all I hear is grown-ass women throwing a temper tantrum because they can't either get or keep the type of man they feel like they deserve. And excuse my phone background and it's chiming. My friends and family decided to text me right now. Haven't gotten a text in like a good 4 or 5 hours, but of course when I go live, I get the text messages, right? So, but yeah, so women are pricing themselves out. I had this conversation with a black British brother who has a show and on his live, and like it was hard for people to kind of conceptualize women pricing themselves out. It was always like, well, why can't men just keep on elevating? And it's like, do you understand that at some point you want something either impossible or nearly impossible, and like where your imagination is and where your air quotes standards are become impossible? Like, is it that difficult to believe? Right? And so when we speak about this kind of asexual revolution, all of these things put all of that in the pot. Put everything I was saying in the pot. The fact that you think you're better than your black men, and white men are too damn racist, and so are the Latinos and the Asians, and women don't want to be eating fur burgers. Put in the gig economy and the outsourcing of different, tasks. Put in what we see going on in Japan with the cuddle cafes and the fact that that's probably going to come to America eventually. Put in radical feminism and its concepts and notions of man-woman relationships or lack thereof. Put all of that in the pot, and once again, like, share, subscribe, hit that super chat. I mentioned this in a previous video. It's important I mention it here again because it speaks to the topic. There was a video that Kim from For Harriet covered, and if I'm not mistaken, it was Kevin Hart speaking about marriage and relationships, and essentially what Kim from For Harriet was saying. By the way, I might be saying that too fast. Let me slow down. Kim from For Harriet, right? The channel name is called For Harriet, and I think her name is Kim Foster, if I think that's her last name, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, so if you go through her comment section for this video where she's covering Kevin Hart speaking about marriage, Kim's whole angle on that video was like, y'all don't make it look sexy, y'all don't make marriage look fun, y'all don't make relationships look fun, plus you're a cheater, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. And what you saw in the comments were women doing what they always do and gassing each other and talking about, oh, how they don't need men, and how, I've never had a relationship, and I'm 37, and I haven't been in a relationship for like how many years. And it was kind of sad. Actually, not kind of. It was actually sad. And Mr. Z does know how to bring the lightsaber out and lop off some heads when he needs to. But in this moment, even when they're trying to be braggadocious, excuse me, and one up each other and saying how much they don't need men and how they're perfectly okay going to sleep at night in peace, and they love spreading out on their bed, and they don't, I'm perfectly okay dying by myself. I'm 37. I've never been in a relationship. Some of these are real comments, by the way. I'm not making these things up. I'm actually, matter of fact, not some. Everything I just said over the past like 45 seconds is real. So, and excuse the road noise, I'm driving right now. So yeah, so that's a real thing, right? Fucking, I'm sorry. But yeah, so think about that. You haven't exercised the relationship muscle. You're 37 and you've never been in a real relationship. And as the ladies on the breakdown were saying, I think one of them was saying she has homegirls that are 42 years old and never been in no real relationship. That's insane. I told y'all that we were dealing with some late 20-something-year-old virgins, by the way. Remember Mr. Z telling y'all that about a year ago, actually more than a year ago too. Some of these sisters is walking around here, and I'm not talking about maybe necessarily the baddest looking sisters, but I'm not talking about some of they're not super unattractive, and they might just your normal everyday sister, a solid 5, a solid 6 in looks maybe. Yeah, they walking around here. Some of them are walking around here at 28, 29 years old, virgins. And I'm not even saying that's even a bad thing. I'm saying the lack of intimacy, that speaks to a lack of intimacy, a lack of relating to men, black men, that speaks to something, right? This is not about pushing young people who don't want to have sex, but it is to say, like, we're dealing with a bunch of socially awkward people, and all we've done over the past few decades is focus on the socially awkward men and boys and not the women and the girls. And how it looks when they vent and when they talk, right? So you got a bunch of women from Fort Harriet admitting that they're in their mid-20s, late 20s, mid-30s, late 30s, either never been in a relationship, haven't been in a relationship in some 4, 5, 6 years, haven't had sex in some 3, 4, 5, 6 years. Yeah, that's a real thing. Yeah, that's a real thing. That's a real thing. And yeah, so that's crazy. So that does speak to this kind of asexual thing that's going on, right? And are these people really asexual? They're not asexual. They're not having sex. They may be socially awkward, right? They may have their standards so damn high that no one can meet it, right? But are they really asexual, or are they just adults throwing temper tantrums, 12-year-old temper tantrums, because they can't get or keep what they want, right? Have they been alpha widowed, right? Because I seriously doubt, and Tone Talk said this before, and I think he was covering Insecure at one point, and I'm gonna paraphrase and say it my own way. When in the hell did black women become so weird and awkward? Because as a person born in the 80s, grew up in the 90s, I don't remember all these weird and socially awkward this had to be something that was either happening around me and I wasn't paying attention, or kind of happened maybe in my later young adulthood and I wasn't paying attention. But when did all these black women become socially awkward? When did that become a thing? Right? I'm not saying I didn't meet socially awkward black girls when I was younger, and even young black women when I was in college age and whatnot. But this kind of trope of the weirdo black girl that's kind of into like different things, and the black community just doesn't understand her, and she got to get her a white dude because that's the only people that can understand her. When did that become a thing? Right? And is that also speaking to this kind of supposed asexual revolution? I'll say it again. I'm gonna say this like multiple times tonight, so y'all get ready to be annoyed by me continuously saying this. You think you're better than your black male counterparts. Non-black men are too damn racist in majority. I'm not saying that you're not gonna get one or two random sisters that end up with the white dude or the Latino dude for real. I've met them, right? And like some of these are genuine relationships I've been around genuine, happy, interracial, black woman, white dude, black woman, Latino dude, and you wish them nothing but luck because that shit's real, right? That you don't get a sense of like inferiority complex from her. You don't get a sense of her like, oh, I'm gonna get back at these black men. No, I've been around with black women that's really, they really love their husband, or he really loves her type thing. But then there's the others, which I would argue is the majority, right? Where you can smell it. Hey, something ain't right, right? And so going to that, like I was saying, you think you're better than your black male counterparts. The majority of non-black men, that's white, Latino, Asian, South Asian, blah, 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 are not interested. They're too damn racist. And not enough women want to eat on vagina and scissor. Now what? And for those of you who have heard me say that multiple times, this is an example. This is what I was saying. I'm not pulling this out my rear end. For those of y'all who ever clicked on my little YouTube link and you can kind of see what I'm subscribed to. I made playlists. Y'all see I'm subscribed to a bunch of stuff, right? And so, I try to make up for not finishing school or not finishing college as much as possible by practically drinking documentaries for fun, lectures, interviews with important talking heads and all that other stuff to get a somewhat worldly understanding of what's going on, right? And because of that, when I'm predicting more and more women, black women too, being on antidepressants, I'm not pulling that out of my rear end. That's not something I want for them. I'm literally predicting it because I see where we're going. I see where this loneliness is going. I see where white capital from the 80s and 90s pushing a super hyper individualistic lifestyle, hyper materialism, hyper consumerism, when it's not met and you think you're better than your black male counterparts, your $42, $45, $50,000 a year job ain't gonna cut it. Like the ladies were saying, it's not gonna hold you at night, right? Between mass media, social media, your homegirls, and aha, and then you could do better than him. Then your homegirls online doing the same thing. The content creators doing the same thing, right? And you go from 18 to 22 to 25 to 30 to 35, and you've been in 2 or 3 relationships, right? If even, right? You've never been in a relationship. You've been in situationships and you're now 35, 36, 37, and all you've ever experienced since you were 17, 16 years old is situationships. Situationships for 20 years of your life? And you trying to tell me that young woman is not going to be on antidepressant pills? Screw her career. You think she's not going to be on antidepressant pills? Because we all are pretending like we could freestyle and we don't need that companionship. All right, let's see. All right, let's see, right? That's men and women. I'm saying it's going to be worse for women, but all right, let's see, right? So when I say what I say, the line again, you think you're better than your black male counterparts, white men are too damn racist. And when I say white men, just use that as an umbrella to say non-black men. White men are too damn racist and not enough women want to munch on vagina. This is your position. This is where you end up. And then once again, you have white capital that's going to continue to push this thing because they're going to make money off of you coming and going, and don't matter where you are. So if you keep on claiming that you perfectly okay being single, white capital will keep on showing you on movies and TV being that. They'll advertise to you. They'll be like, oh, homegirls, y'all could go on a girls trip here and do this and do that, right? We sell the vibrators for $38, $100, blah, 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 right? They're going to make money off of you anyway. So you continuously telling them that you perfectly okay being single. All right. Maybe y'all forgot who white men are. Mr. Z ain't forget. They'll make money off of you coming and going. I've said it multiple times. I've said it on Roger's show, BGS, Charles. These people are amoral. They're amoral, so they're gonna sell you whatever they need to sell you. They'll sell you the lifetime special and the antidepressant pills and the vibrators. And they'll help write the song from your favorite R&B singer talking about you don't need no man. Maybe y'all forgot who y'all dealing with. And they'll give you a something new movie every couple years to titillate you with some mixed interracial relationship. Right? And meanwhile, you going year after year, no sex, and it's not really about the sex, it's the intimacy, right? Or being the bust down for some non-black dude, right? But this asexual revolution thing that we're talking about, like I said, I don't know if it's really asexuality or if it's really just adult women, black women, adult women in general, adult black women throwing a temper tantrum because they can't get or keep what they think they deserve, right? And then what does that look like in the long run? And I think it looks like this. We're seeing it now. Latina, Asian, white, and obviously namely black women, because that's who we care about over here. You know, just single. And I like the ladies from the breakdown were saying, it was one thing when we were at least having sex with each other and having oops babies. The birth rate for black women, and that includes abortion obviously, but the birth rate for black women is at 1.7. So it ain't even like we having the oops babies like we used to. Right? Oh, by the way, for those of you that don't know, you need 2.1 child per woman to maintain your population. The 0.1 is in case of, you know, type of premature death from the child or anything like that. So, you know, you need at least 2.1 to maintain your population. Anything over 2.1 is growth. So if black women are at 1.7, white women are at 1.6, motherfuckers ain't even have the oops babies, right? So we weren't having the oops babies necessarily. And then now you want to add in this kind of what I call just a real adult temper tantrum coming from the women. But this is what y'all wanted. You said you're better than your male counterparts. You said that. You called us dusties. You said 6 figures or nothing. You're the one saying, well, I'll build with him when you really don't fucking mean it. What you really mean is he got to be a baller and you'll come in the door talking about building when you already know he's rich, right? These are what black women are saying, and then you got to deal with the consequences of your own words? Nah, bro, eat that. Right? And it is sad. It is sad. So once again, I mean, it's to Mr. Z, it's not an asexual revolution. I don't see on my day-to-day, I don't see enough socially awkward black women. I see black women that are sedity. I see hood black women. I see your normal everyday sister, right? The whole entire octane scale that BGS covered. I see your 87s, your 89s, your 92s, your 100. Those are the black women. But full on socially awkward and you could tell there's something off about them, and they're so socially awkward that they're asexual because they just can't get turned on by the male body and just, yeah, no, that's not a thing, right? Like I said, it really is just black women and other women throwing a temper tantrum because they can't get the type of dudes they feel they deserve. You know, that's what it really is. And so covering the things again, the outsourced thing just reminds me of the gig economy, right? That's just late stage capitalism finding ways of like making money off of everything. And one of the ladies actually did mention it. Yeah, put a price tag on everything. You put a price tag, and let me actually, side note, let me say this too. If we put a price tag on everything, and black people in majority tend to be working class, working poor, lower middle class, what that mean for black people? When you have white standards, but you a black person and a black body in the black community. Once again, miseducation of a Negro. For those of you that want to know where, if you don't know, where Lauryn Hill got the title, The Miseducation of a Lauryn Hill, is from The Miseducation of a Negro. And that's what a lot of you Negroes are. Just white thinking, moving, acting black people that's mad at other black people because other black people aren't white people. That part. Right? So, once again, the gig economy, the cuddle cafes in Japan, which I see coming to America in some type of form. It may not be an exact translation of cuddle cafes, but in a weird way, pay to play, but not even just for sex. For like all the little non-sexual intimate things, right? Like going on a date and cuddling at the movie theater, right? Kisses on the cheek type things, holding hands type thing. All the little things that we get off on as human beings that have nothing to, well, that usually walk up to the sexual act, but you know, aren't exclusive to the sexual act. All the little things that give you all the butterflies, you know, but aren't sex. I really think that we're gonna that can be an industry in America eventually, right? The holding hands, maybe even the kissing on the lips, but the holding hands, the kissing on the cheek, the rubbing one's back, right? All the little cutesy things that we do, right? I do think that can be a thing. So that radical feminism, once again, I covered it in a previous video where you know, the radical feminists, and it wasn't just exclusive, actually, as a matter of fact, it was mainly non-black women. It was mainly white women in Britain. Also in America, we had that too with the Combahee River Collective. Dr. Green Gorilla has covered that multiple times, where they were talking about this. They were pushing this, right? Actually, you know what? Let me drive back downstairs. I'm gonna go quiet in like a second because I'm gonna clock in and then I'll keep on talking after that. But yeah, so yeah, the Combahee River Collective, right, y'all? So yeah, and the radical feminists in Britain, right? This is what they were advocating for. Like, it's interesting, and BGS has played this video multiple times of the panel of sisters. I want to say it was like, was it 4, 5, or 6 of them who were speaking about it wasn't the Kerner Commission. What were they speaking about? It was one of those. It was one of those government, you know, issued freaking investigate the black community and why what's going on is going on, right? And the sisters were talking about it, and all the sisters was about supporting black men, riding with black men, except for the 2 lighter skinned sisters, right? Now, if you were to interview women today, it would be the other way around. It would be majority of them saying F you, F black men, and maybe 1 or 2 sisters being like, no, we need to ride with our brothers, right? And I think that's where we are. So, and I'm bringing that up in this conversation to say, it's interesting to see what is advocated for 50 years ago, 40 years ago, and then you kind of see how it slowly seeps into the culture and then becomes a thing, right? And I think that's where we are, right? Certain things that radical feminists were advocating for before, we see it. I brought this up when I covered the Mahogany Pink, right? And Cynthia G. They were talking about aborting black sons in the 70s and 80s. Excuse me, the radical feminists were speaking about aborting sons in the 70s and 80s. You fast forward to 2021 and 2022, you got Cynthia G and Mahogany Pink and the like, or their ilk, talking about aborting black sons, right? 30, 40 years later, they're saying the same thing. Some white racist, you know, radical feminist was saying in the 70s, in the 80s. Right? So yeah, that's a thing. All right, y'all, give me 1 second. I'm gonna get quiet for a second. I gotta clock in real quick. Give me a second, y'all. Yeah. So like that's a thing, right? That's definitely a thing. So yeah, so you know, so I already covered the radical feminism thing again. So yeah, the Kim from For Harriet, the comment section, right? So you have, and you see this in like, I don't know how often, and I think I said this last night, and a couple of brothers actually said they've seen it, where black women admit they were wrong, right? They admit they messed up. They missed an opportunity with a man. They messed up an opportunity with a man, and they regret it. Like, he was the best thing that ever happened to me, and I was immature, I was being dumb, I was being hard-headed, and I let that go, and now I'm out here. Or now I've dated a couple of men afterward, or I've been in a couple of relationships afterward, but I've never ever gotten back to that high point ever again, right? But in the comment section from for Kim from For Harriet, where she's reviewing some interview that Kevin Hart had about relationships and marriage and whatnot, all you saw in the comment section was sisters clapping it up and like, yeah, I've been single for such and such time, and I'm perfectly okay sleeping in my bed by myself. It's comfortable, I don't have to share this and da da da. And like, and then those of us who've kind of eavesdropped or overheard aunts and girl cousins and all type of homegirls speaking when they having moments of honesty, it's just sad. They're talking about, they're being honest about them crying, so they put it on online. They're lying online, but then when they're talking to their nearest and dearest homegirls, they're being honest. And sometimes, as a matter of fact, sometimes they actually do slip online. Side note, Chrissy. In one of the videos, Chrissy was speaking about something, and she said she kind of had a moment of honesty, and she was like, I have this nice apartment, I have these nice views, blah blah blah, I have this money, blah blah. My relationship life is complete trash, right? But I'm okay. No, you're not. You know why that slipped out the way it slipped out in the tone that you said it? Because you're not okay. And you want to see the most not okay for women when they're doing good financially and they don't have no man. Oh, y'all forgot Mr. Z used to used to work at a law office. I saw him. White, black, Latina. I saw him. Junior paralegals, right? Attorneys breaking $45,000+ a year. They're doing okay financially, and they don't have no dude. You want to talk about a person depressed? Right? So when Chrissy said that in that video, you're not okay. And it's okay to admit that you're not okay. It's okay to admit that you're lonely. It's weird to me to see human beings deny that they're human beings. We're a communal species. We're a social species. So it's interesting to me to hear people, black people on top of that, be single, be lonely, not admit that you're lonely, say that you're okay when it's very clear that you're not okay, right? You put it on, and then a bunch of y'all are putting on for each other. It's like I'm trying to come up with the analogy, but it's not coming out right. But it's like a bunch of people in like some weird therapeutic coven trying to make each other feel better about not feeling better, about not feeling good, about being single, not necessarily being happy or content in that. Because it's not even that y'all just not happy, but you're content. No, you're not even content. And every once in a while, you'll let people know, or it slip out, like I told y'all, it slipped out with Chrissy, right? Right? So yeah, I brought up the part about Kim from For Harriet, and lastly, the commodification of relationships, like Mr. Z has said before. Yeah, put a price tag on everything. And if you put a price tag on relationships, and you're a sister that's making, okay, supposedly women are looking for men that make 58% more than they do, right? If you're $40,000+ a year sister, guess what? It's done. The men you're looking for are $70,000 plus dudes. That's like what, 20-25% of the population? Bingo. Right what Mr. Z said, the top 20%. So there you go. It's not like you're not meeting men that make more than you. You making 42, 45, he's making 50, 55. Now you looking for 75 and above. Oh well. You're not looking for the top third, you're looking for the top 20%. Well, that contributes to the asexual or the supposed asexuality thing. Like I said, I'm going to say it one more time for good measure. You think you're better than your black male counterparts. White men and non-black dudes are not checking. They too damn racist and colorist, right? And classist. And not enough women want to munch on vagina. And not enough women are into same-sex relationships. And there you go. Like, share, subscribe, click that super chat, right? And there you go. So are y'all really asexual, ladies? Or is this just a temper tantrum? Right? And if it is a temper tantrum, oh, so be it. I mean, like, that's your prerogative, right? That's your prerogative. And if it is a temper tantrum, Mr. Z is not going to tell you you shouldn't. Do it however you want to do it. But this does reverberate throughout the black community, throughout overall society, because it's not just black women that are on this. They're just the loudest about it, like Mr. Z tells y'all all the time. Black women just happen to be the loudest about all of this. They're walking around with a blowhorn saying all the quiet parts out loud, right? I finally could see the comments. I'm about to get out in a minute because I clocked in and I don't want to steal these people's time. But yeah. What you said, Spain man, a rabbit hole of temper tantrums. Exactly. Exactly. Right. And that yeah, shout out to Oliver the Gray. Right. Shout out to J Bones. Thanks for the super chats. But yeah. It's true. And it's sad. I'm genuinely sad. I don't actually want to see black women lose. Like, in the gender back and forth and war between black men, I do want to see them lose that. But in overall, paired to black men, I don't want to see them lose because we're attached to them. Them losing is us losing. Black women been trying to get away from us on this weird ass intersectionality shit even before it was a term for decades. That shit ain't working. Black women, y'all need to reevaluate. It ain't working. Right? A couple of y'all are ending up in okay situations, either by yourselves or attached to non-black men, sometimes even attached to black men. But for the most part, this intersectional, we're going to be the model minority within the black community, or like Dr. T. Hassan Johnson says, we're going to be the colonizing agent of the black community, right? How has that benefited black women over the past 4 and 5 decades, right? And I would implore black women to look at these things holistically. Take a step outside of this back and forth between black men and black women on the internet. Go watch some documentaries. Go read some books, right? Go look up some stuff about the gigification of the economy. Go read some stuff about kind of the class and what's happening to class in America, late stage capitalism, right? All of these things. Go watch these things. Go watch Yuval Harari tell you about, and Tristan Harris tell you about what's happening with technology, right? Go watch some documentaries about Loveless in Japan, right? Type things. So you can get an understanding of what's going on in America. Go look at the birth rate in Europe, right? So you can get an understanding of what's going on in America. Because a lot of y'all are missing it. And some brothers too. right? But if you're in the black manosphere, you really can't miss this, right? Because whether you're on the left side of the political spectrum or the right side of the political spectrum in the black manosphere, we're having these conversations. And we're bringing it back down home to explain to each other how these things will affect us, right? Some of the sisters on the other side, not so much. Which would speak to why so many of them are spending years on end, no sex, no real intimacy. Once again, it's not really about the sex, it's about the intimacy, right? No sex, no intimacy, and sometimes spending upwards of a decade, no relationship. If you're not exercising that muscle, let's say you do meet your dream guy and you've never been in a relationship, how do you even know how to operate in a relationship with a heterosexual man? We're not talking about your homeboy that's on the DL, not on the DL, but your gay homeboy that you've been cool with since high school. And you kind of try to get masculinity from him on a discount, right? Because he's gay and y'all can talk and chill and occasionally maybe do something else, right? But you never have to really see him that way. We're not talking about that. You don't even know how to exercise those muscles, because you don't even know how to be in a relationship with a straight man, let alone a straight black man. Because you've been single for a decade, 15 years, 20 years. You haven't had sex in 7, 8 years, 5 years. You haven't been intimate. The video where a light-skinned sister is crying. I don't have my name said consistently. I don't know what it's like to be loved. I think she said something like that, right? That's sad. That's genuinely for real sad. No jokes. I'm not trying to be funny or sarcastic, right? That is sad. Human beings, a communal, social species, being so mad at each other and putting the bar and the standard so high that the female sex is pricing their vagina out the game, and then being mad that they price their vagina out the game because the men can't afford them. What type of foolishness, right? Being mad at the men because you decided to put your bar to the moon. Being mad at the men because you have some unresolved childhood trauma that you don't want to get counseling for. And then you want to talk about asexual. Anyway, right? I'll pause right there. Thank you guys for listening in. You know, and yeah, that was Mr. Z's ramble. The ladies on the breakdown did a masterful job. The link is in the description for their coverage of this. You know, yeah, it. Spain Man said, I always said they're selling their used Honda Accords for Bentley prices. Yeah, man. Yeah, it's yeah, you already heard me say they don't want the Camry lifestyle, they want the Benz lifestyle. And there's nothing wrong with that. Mr. Z likes nice things. Y'all saw my community tab? That Z wasn't cheap. Right? Mr. Z likes nice things too. How far am I going to go for it? That's a different question. Am I going to be mad at the world because I can't get certain things? Well, the Z, I was pretty damn mad when it looked like I wasn't able to get it. I'm not going to lie. But outside of that, no. And will I try to manipulate and transform the entire world to get these little things? Nah. And do I hold that as a standard or a bar? No. A lot of women gonna have to come to terms with this stuff. You were sold a lie. A lot of people are emotionally masturbating you, giving you an emotional hand job, right? And you're going along with it, so you're gonna have to deal with the consequences of that because you're not investigating what you believe and why you believe it. So I'll truly pause right there. You know, thanks for y'all for listening to me ramble. Mr. Z out. All right, y'all.